Everybody's got a song inside. Everybody's got a sunny side. Sure as every ocean's got a tide. Everybody's got a song inside.
OMS Stories is about assisting people in telling their life story. Now, what I found in my journeys is one of the things that we really have a hard time doing is talking about that most important person in our universe. That's us. Okay? We have a hard time talking about us. Even when we were young, they would say, shh, you're not that important. Shh. Your whole life is a little put down. Now, it isn't on purpose. It's because your parents want peace and quiet. But it's there. And so, through life, we really have a hard time telling our life stories. And so we get to the end and say, man, I'm going to write a book about what I did. And we sit down and we look at a piece of paper and then we go find another activity. And we never really get to telling that life story. And I said, what can I do to assist people in doing that? I looked at the stories and I said, how do you tell life stories? And I looked to my heritage, and as I told Jim, I'm a Teamster Toastmaster. And a Teamster Toastmaster, if he was any kind of a young person, went to his dad to the bars. Now, at the bars, they always told great life stories. They'd get a couple drinks in them, and they would have this story or that story. And as a kid, you just sit fascinated and listening to these great stories. Now, alcohol sort of destroyed my dad, but it destroys most people that stick at it. But the stories were there for me. And I ran with them, and I said, I'd like to create my own. But then I looked and I said, my life isn't made up of this big linear story. It's made up of all these little stories, right? Yeah. All these little snippets of life. And so we look at these snippets and we say, how can we organize a snippet to create a life story? I said, well, I said, I don't know. But let me see how I could do it. And if I can do it, then I can bring it to other people and do it. So 3 years ago, right here in Toastmasters, I met and I asked several people to do it. In fact, Jim is here, and he was one of them, and he was too busy engineering. However, I had one person, Jeff. Okay? Jeff Young. He says, I'd like to do it. I says, Jeff, it's a big commitment. We're going to tell stories for 4 years. I made 4 years. I do 4 years because our life is sort of broke up into 4 years. All our schools are 4 years this, 4 years that. So I said, 4 years, we're going to do 4 years. So we started and we had stuff going on here, but we were doing it in little snippets. So we had the first 8. I said, the first 8 up. We got to the second month, and Jeff looks at me and says, Roland, I don't know what we're going to do after this month. So I went home, and I sat down, and I created a spreadsheet. And all us engineers and everyone here, because we're all no spreadsheets. And I did 208 slots, and I filled them up with 208 subjects. And I sent them to Jeff, and I said, Jeff, we have one rule. And the rule is, if you don't like one, replace it. And that was our only rule for doing it. And I says, I don't care what you create, I will find a life story to match it. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to do 208 life stories. I'm going to create a story out of each one of these subjects that happened in my life. So The proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So if I can't do it, then I can't expect anyone else to do it. So we just completed last week our 3rd year, 150 some shows. We got 1 year left. In fact, Jeff just sent me a little correction. He says, I'd rather have these than these for the next year. So we got all next year set up, all the subjects. And we're starting our first one this week, and I have the speech for it, but I can't remember the name. But it'll be a subject. It'll be a life subject. It'll be something that I am able to tell a story on, and Jeff is able to tell a life story on. Now, Jeff is a baby. He's only in his 40s. So he doesn't have as many life stories as I do. But he'll be able to tell these wonderful life stories. And he's been doing it for 3 years now. He's got 1 more year to do it. But he has a head start because every week when he goes out there, he can look at his life and say, man, I get to create more life stories. Isn't that fantastic? I get to create more life. So you have a what for. Remember my what for? What fors are so cool. So you get another chance to tell another life story. So this is all about telling life stories. Now, I started going, I says, what is something I could bring people in with this and really get them enthusiastic about it? I says, I love it. And then they invited me to a jam in northern Minnesota. I went there and all these people gathered around and these people sat with their instruments and they sang and they played. I says, music! We need music. So I'm going to figure out how we can go not only into the story, but we can add the second beautiful thing to everyone's life. We're going to work on creating songs for our 208 subjects. Plus, we're going to work with helping people do their life's song. Now, isn't that cool and beautiful? Now, I was just talking to a lady yesterday. Her name is Margot Leduc. And Margot said to me, you know, I got this new tool to be able to have people sing beautifully. So I have this magic happen. So she says, here's what she showed me. She said, you know, every one of us, all 8 billion of us have a different sounding voice. If you get on the phone and you hear someone, you can pick their voice out. We all have unique voices, and we all have unique life stories. Okay? So, OMS stories, and what I'm doing, and why I'm here, is to say, look at your life. It's an awesome story. Every one of us has this beautiful, fantastic journey. Okay? First of all, just be alive is a journey in itself. If you live a second, you live, 100 years or 200 years. Every second is a beautiful experience of being alive. And we create those stories. There are some micro insects, I think, that live like 24 hours. They have a whole cosmic incident of living one day. And I've heard of scientists looking at these, and they go through a fantastic change in that one day of life. And we get to live a whole bunch of them. So I set out these 208 subjects, and what our next goal is to go down and create it into a book and sit down and video it and create the music on it so that we can give other people a tool every week to work on one story a week in their life. Now, if I can give this gift to the world, I'm complete. I think that's my journey that I want to complete life with, is to assist people in learning how beautiful they are and creating the story of their lives. Thank you.
Sure as every ocean's got a tide, everybody's got a song inside.